to enhance the skills and creative thinking and critical thinking of the and practical knowledge of our students, we organize different competitions from time to time, like for PowerPoint presentation, poster making competitions, and work model making competition, etc. These are the glimpses of some competitions we organize from time to time. Next slide. These are the poster making competition. Next slide. This is the glimpses of model making competition. Our students participate inside and outside the college under in different activities. Next slide. These are again the glimpses of models made by our students. Our students, they also participate in different types of activities inside and outside our college and bag many prestigious positions. We welcome you to HMV and we wish you, next slide, wish you a journey towards a bright future with HMV. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mrs. Simi Garg for her presentation.
Hello students. Hello. Hello students. So this is Simi Garg, Assistant Professor HMB Jalandhar. I am here to discuss a very interesting topic, that is the semiconductors. I hope most of you have already learned a lot about this topic. So this lecture is just a review for all of you, for all the concepts you have already learned. So don't take it as like it's a lecture. This is just a discussion part. So you can join or you can add anything you would like to add or ask anything. So please feel free to ask anything or add anything. So we have already taken a very basic concept so that you would feel it's very familiar with all of you. So okay, so we will start with our topic, that is semiconductors, electronics, material, devices and circuits. Next slide please. So first thing that comes into our mind is, what is a semiconductor? So semiconductor is a material which has electrical conductivity between that of a conductor and that of an insulator. Like they are not as good electrical conductivity like that of a conductor, but they are also not as a bad conductor like an insulators. So the conductivity of these semiconductors are in between than that of conductors and insulators. So next thing that comes to our mind is that why is it so? Why their electrical conductivity is in between to that of conductors and insulators? For this, we will see the energy level diagram. Next slide, please. In this energy level diagram, you can see we have valence band and conduction band. And there is an energy band gap between valence band and conduction band. So in case of insulators, you can see there is a large band gap between valence band and conduction band. Due to this large band gap, the electrons are not easily available from to jump from valence band to conduction band. So obviously they need large amount of energy to jump from valence band to conduction band, hence to conduct electricity, as a result of which the insulators are bad conductors or they do not conduct electricity. While in case of metals, there is a overlapping between valence band and conduction band. Due to the overlapping between valence band and conduction band, electrons can easily move from valence band to conduction band. As a result, the metals are good conductors of electricity. While you can see very easily in semiconductors, the energy band gap is small. So there is a band gap, but the band gap is also not as large as in case of insulators, and it is not like in case of metal they are overlapping, but in semiconductors there is a small band gap. Due to this small band gap, the electron can attain certain amount of energy and jump from valence band to conduction band. So when the electrons gain energy and jump from valence band to conduction band, they will start conducting. So semiconductors start conducting if they have certain amount of energy that can overcome the energy band gap between them, right? So this is the basic difference between insulators, metals and semiconductors. Next slide please. Now next thing is what are the types of semiconductors? I hope you already know there are two types of, we can classify semiconductors into two types, intrinsic and extrinsic. So basically intrinsic semiconductors are pure semiconductors, while extrinsic semiconductors are impure semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductors are pure because there are no impurities added to it, but to sometimes to improve or to increase the electrical conductivity of semiconductors, we just add impurities to intrinsic or pure semiconductors. Semiconductors are basically the elements having 4 electrons in their outermost shell, like silicon, germanium. These all have 4 electrons in their outermost shell. As we know, silicon has atomic number of 14, so its electronic configuration is 284. So it has 4 electrons in its outermost shell. So silicon is a pure semiconductor, but when we add some impurities to the silicon so as to increase its electrical conductivity, it becomes an extrinsic or impure semiconductors. These extrinsic or impure semiconductors are further of two types, p-type and n-type. We will discuss all these types, intrinsic, extrinsic, p-type, n-type, in our next slides. Next slide, please. So first thing is, what is intrinsic semiconductors? As I have already told you, intrinsic semiconductors are pure semiconductors. That is, there is no impurity. These are pure semiconductors, and these behave as an insulator at 0 Kelvin and behave as a conductor at higher temperature. As the temperature increases, the electrical conductivity of intrinsic semiconductors increases. As germanium and silicon are best example of intrinsic semiconductors. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can see we have give a description how the bonding is formed between the intrinsic semiconductor. We have taken the example of silicon. As silicon has atomic number of 14, so its electronic configuration is 2, 8, and 4. So it has 4 electrons in its outermost shell. It needs 4 more to complete its octet. So one silicon atom which is present, you can see the present at the center position. We have 4 silicon atoms around it. So each silicon atom will share its electron with the silicon present at the center so as to complete its octet. So you can see there will be formation of 4 single bonds, 4 single covalent bonds between the silicon atoms, so that they can complete the octet of silicon. As a result of this, the octet of silicon gets completed. As a result, there is no the silicon cannot conduct electricity as such, because there is no free electron. But as we have already told, these behave as an insulator at 0 Kelvin. But as the temperature rises, they get some energy. With increase in temperature, the silicon atom or semiconductor will gain some energy. So because of that energy, the covalent bond will break. So once a covalent bond is break, an electron will be free from that bond. Electron will get free, and we will have a hole at that place. So if a bond break, then there will be a formation of a hole. So to fill that hole, an electron from another bond will move towards the hole to fill that space. As a result of which, the movement of electrons in the semiconductor will start, and electrical conductivity of semiconductor will increase. As we increase the temperature, more and more covalent bonds will break, and more will be the electrical conductivity of your intrinsic semiconductors, right? But the electrical conductivity of intrinsic semiconductor is not very much high. So in order to further increase its conductivity, we can also add impurities that we will discuss in our next slides. Now, what is the carrier concentration of these intrinsic semiconductors? You can see, next slide, please. You can see, next slide, sir. Here we have shown the energy level diagram. We have valence band and conduction band. As I've already told you, there is a small energy gap. So electron will jump from valence band to conduction band for the conduction of the current. When the electron from the valence band jump to the conduction band, we will have an empty space in the valence band that are called holes. So we have shown here circles, empty circles. These are 4 holes, while in the conduction band we have filled circles that are 4 electrons, right? Next slide, please. So now we have carrier concentration in intrinsic semiconductors. As I have telling you, we have bonds are already complete, but when because of certain energy a bond gets break, we have an empty space in that point, and that is called a hole. So when a bond is break, we have 1 electron and 1 hole. So carrier concentration in intrinsic semiconductor is like the number of electrons and the number of holes will be equal, because when the bond whenever there is breaking up in the bond, number of electrons and the number of holes will be same. So in intrinsic semiconductors, number of conduction electrons will be equal to the number of vacant sites or the holes in the valence band. Next slide, please. So next, our topic is extrinsic semiconductor. As to improve the electrical conductivity of intrinsic semiconductors, we can add impurities to that. The impurities added to the intrinsic semiconductors are called dopant, and this process of adding impurities to the semiconductor so as to increase its electrical conductivity is called doping. So this process of adding impurities are called doping. So with doping we can improve or increase the electrical conductivity of intrinsic semiconductors. Now next question that comes to our mind is, what type of impurity should be added? So as we know, semiconductors are tetravalent, or having 4 electrons in their outermost shell. So we can add two types of impurities. You can either add trivalent impurities or pentavalent impurities. If you add trivalent impurities, you will have p type of semiconductors. If you have pentavalent impurities, then you will have n types of semiconductors. As the name suggests, in the trivalent, when a trivalent impurity is added, the trivalent element will have 3 electrons in its outermost shell, while a pentavalent impurity will have 5 electrons in their outermost shell. So they will belong to third group or fifth group of the periodic table. Okay, so we will have two types of semiconductor, N type or P type. Next slide, please. So now in N type semiconductors, in the N type semiconductors, when a pure semiconductor, when we add a pentavalent impurity to a pure semiconductor, we will have form N type of a semiconductor. For example, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, these all are example of pentavalent elements having 5 electrons in their outermost shell. So now when we add a pentavalent impurity to a semiconductor having 4 electrons in its outermost shell, and pentavalent impurity are having 5 electrons in their outermost shell, obviously the intrinsic semiconductor or the silicon atom or germanium, whatever you are taking as an example, so that will form 4 covalent bonds. 4 electrons will form covalent bond with the impurity, while the 5th electron of your impurity will be loosely or weakly bound to the parent atom. The 5th electron will remain weakly bound to the parent atom, and even for very lesser amount of thermal energy, the energy which can be available even at the room temperature, even for the lesser thermal energy, they will leave the parent atom, and the parent atom would be obviously the positively ionized. Next slide, please. So in this diagram, you can see we have added a phosphorus atom in the silicon semiconductor. So in the phosphorus, we have, as it is a 5 pentavalent impurity, so it have 5 electrons in its outermost shell. So the 4 electrons will get involved with the 4 silicon atoms to form covalent bond, while the 5th electron here will be a free electron. This free electron will improve the electrical conductivity of your semiconductor, right? So as the concentration of the impurity added increases, as more and more number of phosphorus atoms are added, you will have more and more free electrons, and these free electrons will improve the electrical conductivity of your semiconductor, right? Okay, so these phosphorus atoms or impure atoms are called donor atoms. Next slide, please. So here we have mentioned the things, the intrinsic semiconductors doped with pentavalent impurities are called N-type semiconductors. The energy level of the 5th electron is called donor level. So we will have a donor level below the conduction band. So we will form a donor level below the conduction band. This donor level will be there when certain amount of energy is given, then the electrons from the donor level will jump to the conduction band and conduct electricity. So all the electrons, 5th electron of your impurity atoms will form another level that is called donor level below the conduction band. The donor level is close to the bottom of the conduction band. Most of the donor levels, electrons are excited into the conduction band at room temperature and become majority charge carriers. Now you can see we have sorry. Now you can see we have large number of free electrons. Hence, the number of electrons, the concentration of electrons in the N-type semiconductor is more as compared to the holes. That is why the N-type semiconductors have majority carriers electrons, not as holes. Holes are minority carriers and majority carriers are holes. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, In the next slide, we have shown the energy level diagram. We have valence band, conduction band. Here you can see there is a energy, there is a donor level below the conduction band. While in the pure semiconductor or intrinsic semiconductor, we have only valence band and conduction band and forbidden energy gap. In this n-type semiconductor, we have a donor level below the conduction band. So all the electrons, all the fifth electron or the extra electron of the donor impurity will be there in the donor level. As certain amount of energy is gained by the semiconductor, which is very easily available even at room temperature, the electrons in the donor level will jump to the conduction band and conduct electricity. Because of the presence of large number of free electrons, the electrical conductivity of your n-type semiconductor is very much large, right? So next slide, please. So here we have carrier concentration in n-type semiconductors. So as a for example, if we consider Nd as a donor concentration, that is the number of donor atoms present per unit volume of the material. At very low temperatures, all the donor levels are filled with electrons. With the increase in temperature, more and more electrons will gain energy and they will jump to the conduction band, and the density of the electrons in the conduction band keep on increasing, which leads to increase in the electrical conductivity. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, sir. So next we have P type of semiconductors. P type of semiconductor is just like n-type, but the basic difference between n-type and P type is this. In the n-type semiconductors, we have impurities of pentavalent, right? In the P-type semiconductors, we will add trivalent impurities to the pure semiconductor. Now, trivalent impurities like aluminium, Ga, and indium, these are the examples of trivalent impurities having 3 electrons in their outermost shell. So these 3 electrons will be added to the trivalent elements will be added to the intrinsic semiconductors, and obviously in this impurity we have 3 electrons in their outermost shell. So as we already know, the intrinsic semiconductor like silicon or germanium, they are having 4 electrons in their outermost shell. So these 3 electrons will form 3 covalent bonds with that of silicon or germanium, while 1 electron of silicon atom will be one electron of the silicon atom will not have any electron from the aluminium or gallium or whatever indium you are taking trivalent element. So so we need one more electron for formation of 4th bond of the silicon atom. So indium needs one more electron to complete its bond. This electron will be supplied by the silicon. So all the silicon atoms which are present in the neighboring silicon atoms, they will give their electron to that indium and to complete its octet. While once the electron which is moved towards the indium, there will be an empty space in that point, and that empty space will obviously create a hole in the whole structure, and that hole will be filled by another electron, as a result of which there is movement of electrons from one element to another element to another element, so that this movement of electrons will definitely form will lead to conduction and production of electric current, right? Now next slide, please. Here is a pictorial representation. We have indium as an example of impure atom or your acceptor, and we have silicon atom as an intrinsic semiconductors. Now indium have 3 electrons in its outermost shell, so it will form 3 covalent bond with the 3 silicon atoms, while the 4th silicon atom, it will not be able to form the bond with this silicon atom, as there is no another electron present with the indium atom. So there will be a production of hole. So this hole will be filled by another electrons from the silicon atom, and as I have already told you, there will be production of charge carriers or the current. Now indium has accepts 1 extra electron. The energy level of the impurity atom is called acceptor level. Obviously in this case indium is accepting electron, so it is known as acceptor impurity, and the semiconductor doped with such acceptor impurities are called p-type semiconductors. Now the acceptor level of these will lie just above the valence band, like in the donor donor level was lying below the conduction band, in the acceptor level will be above the valence band. Next slide, please. This is the energy level diagram. You can see we have a valence band, conduction band, and here is an acceptor level. So this acceptor level is above the valence band. This acceptor level is formed by your acceptor impurities, which is present in this because of impurity added to the system, right? So you can say the majority carriers in case of majority carriers in p-type semiconductors are holes, and the electrons are minority carriers in p-type of semiconductors. Actually, at relatively low temperatures, these acceptor atoms get ionized, taking electrons from the valence band, and thus give rise to holes in the valence band for conduction. Obviously, the electrons from the valence band will jump to the acceptor level. Valence band will jump to the acceptor level, and holes will be created in the valence band. This will give rise to conduction of electric current, right? Next slide, please. Next slide. Now we have already learned a lot about p-type or n-type semiconductor. What are intrinsic semiconductor, extrinsic, p-type, n-type. Now what we can do with this p-type or n-type semiconductor is like the formation of p-n junction diodes. Now, what is a p-n junction diode? When a p-type semiconductor is joined with the n-type semiconductor, and these both are separated by a junction, that is called p-n junction diode or junction diode. Now you cannot simply just add these two materials together to form a p-n junction diode. There are certain fabrication techniques that are adopted for a p-n junction diode. So to form a p-n junction diode, we have different techniques. Like in one technique, we just cut a very thin slices of p-type semiconductors and n-type semiconductors. Then they are diffused in one p-type semiconductor is diffused through n-type semiconductor to form a p-n junction diode. These are called wafers. The thin slices that are formed are called wafers. Then we fuse p-type semiconductor to the another n-type semiconductors, right? So in the next slide, you will have here we have p material and n material. So as we already know, in the p-type semiconductors, we have large number of free holes and minority carriers are electrons, while in the n-type of materials, we have large number of free electrons and holes are in the minority carriers, right? So when we connect these two, we will have a junction in between the p and n-type semiconductor, that is called p-n junction. Next slide, please. In this slide, we have represented an electronic symbol. So we have a, you can see here is a triangle and one straight line. This triangle part is for p-type and the line is for n-type. So in the next slide, there is a depletion layer formed as an insulator between these two p-type and n-type semiconductors. Next slide, please. Now we will discuss how a depletion region is formed when a p-type and n-type semiconductors are joined to form a p-n junction diode. So initially, when t is equal to 0, that is initially, we have just form a p-type and n-type material. So in the n-type material, you can here see there is a large number of electrons, as electrons are majority carriers in n-type semiconductors, and in p-type we have large number of free holes, right? With the passage of time, the electrons from the n-type semiconductor will move toward the p-type semiconductors, and the holes from the p-type semiconductor will start moving towards the n-type semiconductor. In the next time, you can see at t equal to t1, we have, as the electrons move from n side to p side, they will leave a positive charge behind. That is why we have represented here the positive charges across the junction. And as the holes from the p side will move toward the n side, they will leave a negative charge. So we have shown a negative acceptor ions in the p-type semiconductors. So these p-type, these positive and negative charges present at the junction will form a junction that is called diode junction. Depletion region is formed between at the junction sites. You can see here In the P side, we have negative charges, and the N type we have here a positive charges. So there is a production of a fictitious battery, you can say, in which the positive part of the battery is with the N type semiconductor, and the negative terminal of the battery is with the P type of semiconductor. So we will have a fictitious battery at this point. This is called a junction voltage. So if electron or any hole have to move from one side to another side, they have to cross this fictitious battery or this barrier, so as to move from to cross the junction. So this is the creation of depletion region between N type and P type semiconductors. Next slide, please. This depletion layer can be made wider by external reverse voltage and can be made smaller by external forward voltage. So here we can use two type of biasing. First one is forward biasing, another one is reverse biasing. In the forward biasing, we will just connect P type of semiconductor with positive terminal of the battery and N type of semiconductor with negative terminal of the battery. While in the reverse biasing, we will connect P type of semiconductor with negative terminal of the battery and N type of semiconductor with positive terminal of the battery. So these two will lead to either widening the depletion region or decreasing the width of the depletion region. How we can see in the next slide. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, we have here the PN junction under reverse biasing. As we have already discussing in the reverse biasing, we will connect N type of a semiconductor with positive terminal of the battery, while the P type of a semiconductor with negative terminal of the battery. So when N type of a semiconductor is connected with positive terminal of the battery and the P type of semiconductor is connected with negative terminal of the battery, the electrons in the majority carriers of the N type semiconductor, that are electrons, will move toward the positive terminal of the battery, while the holes in the P type semiconductors will get attracted towards the negative terminal of the battery. So the electrons from the N terminal of the battery will start moving towards the positive terminal. Electrons from the N type of semiconductor will start moving towards the positive terminal of the battery, right? And so you can say the N type of semiconductor has lost some electrons. Due to this, some covalent bond will get break up in the N type of semiconductor. The electrons and the holes will be produced. The holes present in the N type of a semiconductor and the electrons from the battery will move toward the P type of semiconductor to neutralize that holes that are formed by the covalent bonds. So there will be movement of electrons inside and outside the circuit. In the external circuit, we will have motion of electrons from N type to P type. From electrons from the N type semiconductor will move toward the positive terminal of the battery, and electrons from the negative terminal of the battery will move toward the P type semiconductor. So in the external circuit, we will have motion of electrons from N type semiconductor to P type semiconductor, or current will move obviously in the reverse direction, right? So as the electrons are N type semiconductor are moving away from the external from the depletion region, and electron and the holes in the P region are moving away from the depletion region, the width of the depletion region will get widened, and the depletion and the width of the depletion region get widened. Hence, in the reverse biasing, depletion region, the fictitious battery becomes strong, and obviously the current will is flowing less as compared to the forward biasing. While in the forward biasing, next slide please. In the forward biasing, we have N type of semiconductor with negative terminal of the battery, and P type of semiconductor is connected with positive terminal of the battery. Now, the electrons in the N type of semiconductor will be repelled by the negative terminal of the battery. So they will start moving towards the P type of semiconductor, while the holes in the P type of semiconductor will be repelled by the positive terminal of the battery. So they will start moving towards the N type of semiconductor, that is towards the junction side. So there will be the movement of electrons and holes towards the junction side, as a result of which the width of the depletion region will decrease in case of forward biasing, while in the reverse biasing, the width of the depletion region will increase, right? So this is all about PN junction diode. their biasing, forward biasing, reverse biasing, semiconductors, their types. Now I have a very interesting video for all of you. I would like you to please see. I'm sure you will definitely like. We will just connect.
And they can be classified into three types, namely conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. Conductors are materials that have excellent current carrying capacity or allow good flow of current through them, such as a copper wire. And semiconductors, as the name suggests, allows partial or semiconduction of the current, or we could say its current carrying capacity is in between the conductor and the insulator, such as germanium. Whereas insulators are materials that are bad conductors of current and do not allow the flow of current through them, as they do not have a current carrying capacity such as wood. Now let's further understand this with an example of a stadium entrance and people. Let's imagine the stadium entrance to be a conductor and the people as current. Now we can see a large group of people passing through the gates and enter the stadium easily in the same manner in which conductors allow electricity to pass through them easily. However, here we see the crowd of people moving past the entrance one by one slowly in a queue. Now why is that? That's because the current in a semiconductor passes through it partially but continuously. In the case of insulators that are bad conductors of electricity, we can see the stadium entrance, which we have assumed to be an insulator, is blocked, thus not allowing the crowd of people, which we have assumed to be as current, to pass through it. The term semiconducting was used for the first time by Alexander Walter in 1782. However, the first documented observation of a semiconductor effect is that of Michael Faraday in 1833. Who noticed that the resistance of silver sulfide decreased with temperature, which was different than the temperature dependence observed in metals. Semiconductors are further divided into intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductors, depending on their structure, properties, etc. Intrinsic semiconductors. Do we know what intrinsic means? It means in its purest form. Therefore, these type of semiconductors are in their purest form by the nature of their existence. The common semiconductors used are silicon and germanium, and they have 4 valence electrons orbiting in its outermost shell. We can further understand the motion of these electrons by looking at the structure of its atom. However, the atom needs a total of 8 electrons in its outer shell to become stable. Hey! It's time to concentrate now. Now let's see how the semiconductor atom acquires the additional 4 electrons and becomes stable. Let's first look at this process with the help of one atom. This atom already has its 4 valence electrons and requires an additional 4 to become stable, which it shares with its neighboring atom so that every silicon atom has 8 electrons in its outermost shell. Here millions of silicon atoms are bonded together and they form a semiconductor structure which looks like this. All these atoms set up a bond with each other, which is called as a covalent bond. However, these bonds are so strong that the electron fails to break the bond at 0 Kelvin. But as the temperature increases, the electron absorbs the heat energy and it is able to break the bond. Once the bond is broken, the electron becomes free to carry the current. We get a deficiency of an electron in the structure. Hence, there is an empty space formed which can also refer to as a hole. Therefore, we consider holes to be positively charged. Electron here is negative and the empty space or hole is positive. Therefore, the immediate neighboring electron gets attracted towards this hole and fills its place, thus creating another empty space or hole. At its previous position, the process will continue in the entire structure in a random manner. So let's understand the second type of semiconductors, which are extrinsic semiconductors. How are they different from the intrinsic semiconductors? While intrinsic are the pure form of semiconductors, impurities need to be added to the intrinsic to improve their conductivity And these semiconductors with impurities are called as extrinsic semiconductors. Extrinsic semiconductors are further subdivided into p-type or trivalent and n-type or pentavalent. As we can see, we have 3 electrons orbiting in the outermost shell of the atom. It is called as trivalent. And in the other atom, we have 5 electrons orbiting, hence it is called as pentavalent. The common examples of trivalent are boron, gallium and indium, and that of pentavalent are phosphorus, arsenic and antimony.
Seriously, pay attention. This is important.
The process of adding these impurities to the intrinsic semiconductors is called as doping, and the impurities that improve the conductivity of these semiconductors are called as dopants. In case of trivalent, 3 electrons of boron will form 3 bonds with silicon, and in the 4th bond of silicon, there will be 1 empty space or hole, and as seen previously, the immediate neighboring electron will be attracted towards the hole, thus creating another empty space in its previous location. Simultaneously, the electrons of the silicon atoms attain thermal energy and keep breaking the covalent bonds at room temperature, thus creating further free electrons, and this movement will go on in the same manner. Therefore, the number of holes generated in this structure dominate over the electrons. Hence, this structure is called as a p-type semiconductor. Now let's look at the second type of extrinsic semiconductor, the n-type or pentavalent semiconductor. In this, the atomic structure of the n-type or pentavalent semiconductor will have 5 electrons in the outermost shell. As silicon requires only 4 additional electrons to attain stability, in pentavalent atom we have 1 extra electron as a valence electron. So we get a net negative charge due to this extra electron. Hence its name is n-type semiconductor. Common examples of n-type or pentavalent impurities are phosphorus, arsenic and antimony. When we add pentavalent impurities to an intrinsic semiconductor, we observe that the phosphorus atom forms 4 bonds with 4 silicon atoms, fulfilling the needs of silicon. But even after that, there remains 1 electron which does not form any bond and remains free. Hence, unlike the previous structures, here we get free electron readily available for conduction. This electron rotates randomly around the phosphorus atom, following a circular motion. In addition to this, the breaking of bonds as seen in the intrinsic semiconductors happens here as well. Now let's have a quick review of what we have learned in this lecture. We categorize the materials into 3 main parts, such as conductors having excellent current carrying capacity, insulators having approximately 0 current carrying capacity, and semiconductors having current carrying capacity between conductors and insulators. Semiconductors are further classified into 2 main types: intrinsic semiconductors and extrinsic semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductors are the purest form of semiconductors having 4 electrons in the outermost orbit and made up of covalent bonding of silicon atoms with each other. While intrinsic are the pure form of semiconductors, impurities need to be added to the intrinsic to improve their conductivity, and these semiconductors with impurities are called as extrinsic semiconductors. Extrinsic semiconductors are of 2 types. P-type, in which we add a trivalent impurity which has 3 electrons in its outermost orbit, and N-type, in which we add a pentavalent impurity having 5 electrons in its outermost orbit. Addition of trivalent impurity creates a hole in the structure, and addition of pentavalent impurity gives an extra electron required to carry the current.
Ji, Sushil sir, over to you. Sushil sir.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
ma'am, you can enclose it.
Yeah. So students, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have any query, you can ask. Hello. If anyone want to ask anything, they are. Hello.
Ma'am, queries will be in the chat section after the session. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay. Okay. So I request Sushil sir to continue.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So,
Yes, sir. It's audible. It's
okay,
audible, sir. Fine.
okay. I'm just starting. So, good morning, everyone. Here I am Sushil Kumar from the Department of Physics at Hansraj Mahila Mahavidyalaya. Welcome you all in the third day of science workshop. Today is the day fixed for physics, and Simi ma'am have already told you about a bit of electronics. Today my topic is, it's not topic, it's basically talk from unclear to nuclear. Um, Basically, the main reason for choosing me this topic is just because in our country most of us are unclear. We do not know what to do, what we are not with an uh, ethical practical approach. What we are doing is not doing with ethical practical approach. We look for others to set our goals. We look our, what our friends are doing. We look for what our neighbors are doing. Look for his or her son, what she or he is doing and how much they are earning. Basically what we are doing is we are peeping into others life, others goals, and we trying to take that kind of job to ourselves, or that kind of career to ourselves. So basically we are unclear in that sense. My topic is not basically regarding the nuclear physics. It's just making your mind unclear to clear. Unclear means you do not know anything, where to start, what to start. And what nuclear means, you have to go to the small realism, so that with that small part, what we know as what we teach is physics, that there is a lot of job opportunities, lot of job careers in physics. So if you are interested in physics, then how you are going to take your uh, career in physics? This is the only reason we are not progressing as a nation, because we are choosing our career under the influence of others, not based on our interests, our skills, our feelings. If we are not feeling what we are doing, we are not going to be successful in that. So while choosing your career, we should focus on many things, many aspects. I try to cover many things that as much as I can. So starting from while choosing your career, you should know what are your skills. If you are not knowing your skills, if you are good at writing, if you are good at communicating, if you are good at problem solving, if you are good in computing, organizing, then there is different type of career for you. Your skills are going to matter. If you are good in computers, then you should go for your career in computers. So while choosing your career, the first point you should take care by in your mind is your skills. You should know that these are the skills, these are the things which you can rely upon, and you choose your career. Then the second thing is your interest. Your interest, if you do not have your scientific approach, if you do not have scientific approach, then there is no career in basic sciences. You if you have basic approach for science, you are creative, you are social, you are outdoor and active, then you can approach your career in physics. Then third point is what I think is values and motivation. Values, you have ample kind of money to invest in yourself. If you want to pursue a career, and if you want to start a business, then you need to have your money. You are helping others, your security, your work life balance. So value and motivation are the third point which are going to which are going to help you to choose your career. Then fourth point is your personality. Are you determined, cautious, outgoing, calm? These 4 points, starting from your skills, your interests, values, and motivations, your personality, they are the basic thing which you should look into yourself so that you can make your career. Then these 3 points, your location, your qualification, and your context, they also affect your career. If you are if you are living in certain border area and you think you want to your career in IT or something else, then you need to understand that you have to move from your village to uh, some modern city so that you can make your career in IT. But at the same time, you have to concentrate, or you have to make clear in that after doing something in that big city, you shift your things to your location so that the other one should not suffer. So your location will play a bit role in choosing your career, your qualification. By doing only plus two, you can choose. You cannot supposed to be an officer. So your qualification, your context can play their role. Uh, so in this slide, I am going to focus. I while choosing your career, if you choose physics as your career, then you have to focus on many things. Focus on many things. If you're thinking all these kinds of job, all these kinds of career in yourself, you want to be a researcher or physicist or research associate, technician, teacher, scientist, materialogist, nanotechnologist, geophysicist, then you have to opt for physics. If you opt for physics, you have to focus. Now, we start from unclear vision. From by knowing your skills, your interests, you focus on physics, and you from unclear to you starting clearing the vision. You come from a larger version to a smaller version. So people say that people starting when you do your plus two, then people think only for medical or doctor degree or engineering degree, and these two are the broad visions of the people that this is they need to form career in only these two categories. But there is lot of space at the bottom. If you start with the physics, you can opt for many things. You can earn in lakhs. There are many jobs which are going to, but you need to be focused uh, on the basic concepts of the physics, and you have to enhance your skills. You have to enhance your interests. You have to do all the things which required to having a good career. So if you opt physics as your career, then what we at HMB try to make you to know yourself. You, in what subject you are good, in what subject you have to explore your possibilities, what are your choices, and how you can set your goals. How you can, and that goals converted into careers. We try to give you basically the action plan starting from your BSc to masters or PhD. We are trying to help you starting from graduation to uh, till the level you want to study. There are so many things which a teacher can guide you to make your career. So in at HMB, we will try to make you to know yourself, to explore your possibilities, to make your choices, and to form a very good career in physics. So in uh, while in bachelor's in HMV, we are providing with 3 courses. With one is BSc non-medical, in which physics, chemistry, and math. Then BSc computer science, physics, computer, and math. Then one more subject is there, BSc bioinformatics. If you are good in bio and want to study physics along with bio, then you can opt for physics, bioinformatics, and math. And if you do bachelor's in sciences, then you can have all these kinds of jobs which are shown in the PPT. You are bachelor and you can go for any kind of government job. kind of government job is applicable to you. You can apply for any government job. Your level is high, so you can easily make your career in, other than the students who are from commerce background or from arts background. If you are doing bachelor's from sciences, then you are easily make your career in government jobs, in bank posts. You are good in math and everything. Then you can go for lab supervisor, then assistant scientist, staff selection commission, or after doing B.Ed you can be a good teacher. Now, still, if after doing your bachelor's and you feel your interest in physics, then there are so many branches of physics in which you can pursue your master's. There are many branches of physics or there are many branches of physics of your interest in which you can make your career. There is acoustical branch, astrophysics, astronomy, biophysics, fiber optical, fluid physics, geophysics, material physics, medicine, medical and health physics. This is the new area in which many universities are working, medical and health physics. At present, COVID is going on, and PGI, along with Department of Physics at Punjab University, they are working together to make a medicine or vaccine for the virus. So there are many uh, fields in physics in which you can go and work out for your career. At HMB in masters, we are going to provide you MSc with specialization in material sciences and nanotechnology. Material sciences, 90% of the work in physics is with the material sciences, and the special branch of material sciences is nanotechnology. After doing your masters, you can be a you can, after qualifying your UGC or GATE. See, at every level you have to give an entrance. After MSc, you have to give your UGC, and that will be conducted by CSIR, and another test is GATE. After giving these two tests, one is UGC. If you are giving UGC, you are eligible for a job as assistant professor in any college or in any good institution, or by doing or qualifying GATE, graduate aptitude training entrance. If you qualify for GATE, then there are many labs, many opportunities for you to work as scientist B. The starting job of a of these lab is as scientist B. You are doing a job, and along with your job, you can do your PhD. PhD is not necessary condition that you should go for PhD. It's just your qualification and the entrance test. After entrance test, you can do the job. If you are still making your career in still love you, if your love is for physics is still there, then you can go for jobs, many jobs in different institutes. I have given the different institute along with the number of labs. DRDO is all over India. There are 52 labs, and if there are 52 labs and one lab is consisting of 10 people, then there are 520 opportunities every year for one lab. So it's basically your interest. If you are doing more, if you are going deeper and deeper in physics, you are going to be good job career of yourself. You are finding very good job for yourself. Similarly, CSIO, there are 38 labs. PRL, the Physics Research Laboratory, Ahmedabad. There is one Physics Research Laboratory, Saha Institute, Indian Space, ISRO. There are 18 institute of ISRO. If you are good, if you want to career in your astrophysics, then ISRO is very good organization. And there are nearby us, there is a lab at Chandigarh related to ISRO. Then NSC, Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Bhabha Atomic Research Center is one of the pioneer in the field of nuclear physics. And the nuclear word I have taken from Bhabha Atomic Research Center, because when you go for Bhabha Atomic Research Center, they see your interest, your skills in physics. They do not look for your numbers, how much you score in your exams. They look how good you are in physics. So people or the students, they are not aware of these kinds of institutes which are working in India. And in India, there is, as I said, you have to qualify for UGC or GATE. While qualifying for UGC or GATE, your starting earning is 35,000. If you do a job at some organization or start your career as a professor, the minimum salary package is 35,000 per month, along with 5,000 HR. So, and these amounts are going to increase year by year. So it's a very good career opportunity given by Indian government, and there are so many institutes. These are the 5 or 6 institutes which are in Punjab for research. Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Mohali, then one at IIT Ropar, National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education, PGIMR, then Punjab Institute of Medical Sciences, INSC. INSC is working for the nanotechnology and so many things. So, what I suggest, if you are going deeper and deeper in your physics, and then you can be going above and above in your career. The basic thing is you have to take your interests, you have to make the things clear to yourself, and you can do very good in your career. So thank you so much for spending your time for me. Now,
हाँ सर, अनशेयर कर लीजिए, स्क्रीन अनशेयर करिए, मैं वीडियो चला रहा हूँ.
okay.
Welcoming all the students, welcoming Sushil ji.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Separately for its postgraduate and undergraduate students. All the members of faculty are well experienced and actively involved in research. They also promote research among the students by undertaking research projects, organizing field visits, and visits to prestigious research labs. The department has collaboration with Indian Association of Physics Teachers and Vigyan Prasar and works actively for improving the technical skills and practical knowledge of the subject by organizing various competitions like model making competition, quiz, PowerPoint presentation, and hands-on training workshops. To keep pace with the latest development in science and technology, the department organizes various conferences and seminars. The students bring laurels to the institution by bagging prestigious positions in the university merit list as well as various competitions organized by other institutions. The academic ambience of the department nurtures the students to become confident, qualified professionals.
Hello everyone, my name is Garima Arya and I am a BSc passed out graduate of 2019 batch from Hansraj Mahila Mahavidyalaya. During my graduation period, physics is one of my subjects. So being a part of physics department, I used to get interact with those teachers and faculty members, and I feel that those teachers are highly trained in their own subjects.
I am Harleen Kaur Sanan from BSc Computer Science. The physics department aims at proposing scientific development, bringing up its students as educated individuals who are equipped for life.
Physics department of our college has always motivated the students to take part in other co-curricular activities as well as with our regular studies.
I thank HMB for providing us with the physics department every student deserves while appreciating the effort of everybody in it.
To all the young girls out there looking forward for an opportunity, we highly recommend you to be the part of HMB.
Department of Physics at Hansraj Mahila Mahavidyalaya Jalandhar.
सर आप ले सकते हैं.
So any question, any query about the department or anything about the subject, if you want to ask, you feel free to ask your questions.
Some students have addressed in chat room, sir. They have thanked you. Various names are here. You can highlight them.
All the students have written very good comments. Many students are happy about the informative sessions. So बच्चों आप अपनी queries भी पूछ सकते हो.
You can address for the next session also.
Okay. So tomorrow we are going to be with Dr. Harpreet. He is bioinformatics, and he is a very good researcher and a very good scientist. So tomorrow from the science, it will be the day for bioinformatics. Thank you all. Thank you for joining the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sushil. And dear students, today I think the attendance has been a little less than expected. आपके काफी दोस्त बच्चे आज ज्वाइन नहीं किए हैं आपके फ्रेंड्स ने, तो प्लीज कल उनको कहिएगा कि सर्टिफिकेट्स ई सर्टिफिकेट्स हमने इशू तभी करना है जब आपकी प्रॉपर अटेंडेंस होगी. सो ये एक बड़ा अच्छा कोर्स आप अटेंड कर रहे हैं, फाउंडेशंस ऑफ साइंस. सो इफ यू really want to learn and earn your certificate, you must come punctually. So tomorrow we will see that at 11 how many of you have joined DOT and e-certificates आपकी attendance के base पे ही issue किए जाएंगे. And today it has been wonderful. The experts have shown great videos and have shown you great concepts in physics. I thank all the experts. I thank Mr. Sushil. I thank Madam Simi. I thank Madam Saloni. Thank you very much and see you tomorrow DOT at 11.
Okay. Okay.
Ending the session. Thank you.